Hi, this is Mash Rundown. If you enjoy watching movies as much as we do, subscribe and hit the like button down below.
Today we're going to be doing our movie review for Wonder Woman 1984. Wonder Woman 1984 was directed by Patty Jenkins. It stars Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman, Chris Pine as Steve, Kristen Wiig as Cheetah, and Pedro Pascal as Maxwell Lord.
The story really looks at two main villains, Maxwell Lord and Cheetah. And I think Cheetah gets introduced very nicely. She could have been a bit more of a long-term idea, but I did see her worth in the movie.
Yeah.
And it really, I think a lot of the movie focuses on Diana's development more so than, these huge action scenes that some people might expect.
As far as themes in the movie go, there's a big focus on truth. The lasso of truth comes in heavily here, but it's more truth in the sense of there's no real shortcuts. You can't cheat to get ahead. You sometimes have to make the harder call because it's the right call, because it's the right way to do things. It's the truth, and how the truth is bigger than everybody else.
And searching your heart for the truth, because sometimes it's really difficult to do what's right long term than focusing on what you want now.
Yeah. With it being Wonder Woman 1984, they used a lot of older tropes from the 80s that we would expect to see then. Stuff like the running was very old school running. It was, even the storyline was very old school, very, very straightforward, but something you'd expect out of the 80s almost.
In terms of plotline, some of the old school tropes, like what you were saying, is the typical look at this nerdy girl, with big glasses and baggy clothes, and how she transforms into this powerful, strong woman. So the good.
One of the first things I liked quite a lot is in the first movie we had Diana being introduced to our world, and then Steve being the one to basically take her through what the world is like. Now with him coming back, the roles have switched, and she's the one taking him through how do things work in the 80s, and it's interesting to see that dynamic switch. I quite enjoyed it.
I particularly like the choreography because in a lot of parts it felt like Wonder Woman, and Gal Gadot did such a good job holding herself as if she was Wonder Woman, and I think much better than in the first movie.
Definitely.
So she felt more believable, her movements felt more believable, and there were some nice animal imagery in the fight scenes towards the end, but I'm not going to really talk much more about that. I think obviously one of the characters, Cheetah, kind of gives you a bit of an idea of what type of animal tropes may be used, but that was just so cool.
Yes, and very well executed.
And I also really like that she used the lasso of truth a lot now.
Yes, a lot more than we've seen her in the past, actually. Almost as if the lasso became an extra character in the movie. That was cool. With her using the lasso extensively in this movie, there's no sword and shield like we had in the first movie. But the first movie, she was in a war. It was World War II, so she needs to almost kill or be killed. So you go in with weapons. At this point in the 80s, she's not in a war anymore. She's there as a protector. So it makes sense that she's put away the sword and shield in favor of a lasso to subdue as opposed to attack.
I also liked the colors. They were very bright. There wasn't a lot of dark scenes where the action and the CGI gets lost.
Yeah.
So I appreciated that. And it made it feel even more 80s with like the bright green and pink spandex and everything. Yes. So it felt really 80s.
It was 80s.
So definitely matched that.
The score is composed by Hans Zimmer, so it's going to be good. And it was. I mean, it was perfect for the movie.
Yeah. Definitely fit into the emotions and carried them through nicely.
Yeah.
And I also really liked the costumes.
Yes.
Wonder Woman looked like she was comfortable in the costumes, and that gold suit that you see in the trailer was amazing. I loved that costume.
It was very cool.
I can so see people cosplaying that.
Totally. Overall, the acting was good in the movie. Everybody was believable in their roles. Gal Gadot, of course, is comfortable being Wonder Woman now. She embodies Wonder Woman quite well. Pedro Pascal does do a villain very well. And Kristen Wiig also did a very good job as the nerdy villain.
I think the character development for most of the characters were pretty apt. Not that there was huge character development for all of them, but I think that was the point.
Yeah.
I think some of the characters weren't supposed to develop and, do a whole turnaround, so I liked that.
Yes.
So the lack of character development is sometimes a good thing, because that is, in itself, character development.
Yes.
I don't know if that makes sense.
Makes 100% sense. Then, of course, we had a cameo from Linda Carter, and it was just so cool to see her on the big screen. So that was quite epic.
It was awesome. As far as the bad goes, I really didn't like the fact, like from the trailer, if you guys have seen our trailer reaction, I did not like the fact that she was swinging on lightning.
Doesn't make sense.
It didn't make sense in the plot line. It doesn't make sense for Wonder Woman, as far as I know, in terms of comic book and character. I hated that. Why was she swinging on lightning?
And it was so absurd that it didn't even look cool anymore. It just, instead of sitting there going, wow, that's amazing, it was sitting there going, but why?
Yeah.
But why is not what they were going for.
Just made no sense. I know that the movie answered a lot of questions I had from the trailer, but this is one of the ones that it just left, like, I still feel like, why the hell did they do that? It just...
And even the swinging animations in general was almost a throwback to the first Spider-Man movie. It was very artificial, very poorly done. I don't know if they were also going for the 80s style there, but it just looked so poor. And I'd argue that they weren't going for the 80s style, because when they were in Themyscira, they were swinging like that as well, and that was when she was a young child. So that was long before the 80s. So it's not really a throwback, that scene. And their swinging there was also poorly animated. So it was iffy for me.
It was a bit disappointing because most of the CGI in the movie was really well done. So that was just one part where I don't know, they just didn't put enough effort into.
Possibly, no.
And also the end, I wasn't a huge fan. I don't want to say it was a cop-out exactly, but I feel like there wasn't enough repercussions.
The end wasn't totally satisfying. I didn't walk out of the cinema feeling like I had a full, satisfying meal. It was a good beginning, good middle, and a meh end. So, yeah.
I think I liked the end a little bit more than you did. Because to me it wasn't mad. It was still good. It's just I felt like they could have done more.
A lot more. So overall, like, definitely a good comic book movie, good action movie. It has all the scenes that you want it to have. Maybe slightly less action than some, but still enough to keep you entertained. And it's got the heart, it's got the humor. Just the end was a bit unsatisfying for me.
I think even though it had a simple storyline, it was still a really good superhero movie.
Yes.
So that leaves me giving it a rating of 8 out of 10.
And unfortunately for me, with the end, it detracts a couple of points. I'm giving it a 7.
So overall it gets a 7.5 out of 10.
Yeah.
I think people who enjoy comic book movies, who are DC fans, who like Wonder Woman, people who enjoy action movies in general, will really enjoy this movie.
Definitely.
It was definitely worth a watch. And I think in terms of, watching it on full screen or versus HBO Max, IMAX, 3D and all of that, I think definitely a big screen movie if you can.
Yeah.
3D, I'm not so sure because we watched in 3D. It was okay. I don't think I would say it was a 3D movie. It wasn't necessary. Yeah, I've heard really good things about IMAX, so it's definitely worth a watch for that. But it's still worth watching on HBO Max if you can't watch it anywhere else. It's still a worthwhile movie overall. Comment down below and let us know if you prefer Wonder Woman with the lasso of truth or Wonder Woman with her shield and sword. Bye.
Later.